Here's a short little video recap to all you non-Lithuanian comprehending friends of mine. Um, I've I changed to Lithuanian because I decided that living in Lithuania, it resonated to me most to speak to my own people, the people around me, the people I see. So even friends and family, people who can't understand English could understand what I'm doing here. And anyways, so behind me is the project that's been taking up the majority of this season. But to start from what I started with in the beginning of the year, we must go past the camper that we acquired in March. And here you can see a beautiful cherry tree, and over there is some plums and a big cherry. And the reason I did not start working on the house intensively until mid-May was because I put a lot of love into fruit trees and stuff that I already planted, and also I got some new fruit trees, and nut trees. So this was a tree that was dying. You can see from these other branches, it barely had any leaves on it. It was, and it got attacked by, what are those sugar-sucking bugs? And what I did was in May, I added some manure to it, and then I added a layer of wood chips, which had some mushrooms already inoculated, and then I covered everything up with mulch. And since it's the end of the season, I generally tend to wake up in the morning cold, and as some morning exercise, I cut the grass with a scythe and I throw them around the fruit trees, and it paid off because I have never seen my fruit trees grow this much as they have this year. So here, for example, is a Turkish hazelnut or filbert, and there's many more around the place. So Yeva came into my life last December, and though she's not around at the moment, she's in Vilnius. It was her initiative to move the kitchen somewhere which would be closer to the house in the construction. And so this tarp was to be used for the construction, to be like a construction tent or to work under, but it never really found a use. And here it did. So her uncle gifted this old Swedish oven or fireplace. Yeva burned Shusugiban these pallets. Her uncle also gave the pallets, and she wanted a double stove, so we made some improvements here. Yeva is very interested in natural medicines and everything related to natural health, as she does acupuncture. So here are some fly agarics with which we made a tincture a couple days ago with some alcohol, about 40%. And here we found some chaga. Unfortunately, though, I have not had as much time to willy-wally around the land and experiment and play around as I would like to, because my priority has been on the house. So when we arrived here mid-March, only thing that was standing was this A form and a crossbar, so the front was semi-done. The crossbar eventually got replaced. This is the old one, and I replaced it because it was very skinny. And so most of the housework got done this year after May. So beginning with the year, I put up this beam, and then the cross beam, and then I added the wind braces. Then I redid this cross beam. It was hella heavy to lift. Added these cross beams. Here there were holes, so I cut it out so that I could fit in these blocks. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I could finally start on the roof. So, what is it, mid-August or so, early August, I started with the rafters. It was a challenge figuring out how to connect them, because the book that I'm learning how to do roundwood timber framing with only gave instructions up until the roof, and then it used sawed lumber. So here I used up the remaining wood that I had. I found some more wood in the forest, and I carved out everywhere where it connects sort of bird's notch, and then I added pegs everywhere. And now, and then afterwards, because I have a big window that's leaning against the camper, it's a 1.60 by 1.14 wide. And so I added this extra center rafter thing to support it. And when the window arrived and I realized how heavy it would be, I decided to add one more rafter, which is this second rafter here. And so that means that now doing the purlins, which are these horizontal beams which will hold the reed roof, I need a lot of pegs. So here everywhere I'm using 5/8 inch or 15.5 millimeter oak pegs. And I'm learning here. I've made some mistakes along the way, and as you can see, this got sawed off, and I realized some issues were because these rafters are not even. So in some places I tried to add tension to the purlins by pushing it down. So here there's unevenness. Whereas going forward, I realized to add wedges into the bottom of the pegs so that the pegs don't pull out from the pressure, so that they stay fit. I cheated in some places and used some wood glue, though I think I'm going to try to avoid going forward with that. And right now, I was hoping to finish the roof by winter, and it's looking unrealistic to me at the moment because it takes at least a day to do a single purlin row. Sometimes just to do one side it takes a day. So I'm chugging away. Otherwise, we can go on a bit of a tour. So the hammock moved here from the old kitchen, which we are heading to now. And this is pretty rare to have this kind of sunny, warm weather now at the end of September. It's been pretty cold this month. So this turned into a storage area. I'm looking after Taiga, a dog for a friend for a week. I've got some lime to make a bathroom, which we never got around to. Here's the Velux window mounting packet. And here's the greenhouse and the garden. We experimented this year planting in these straw bales or hay bales. Can't remember which ones these are. And since we got a pretty early frost, our pumpkins and cucumbers died. And we did not put enough soil basically what we did here is we dug out some of the straw and then we put in some soil in which we planted these things. The plants germinated very fast, but once they grew up, I think they had too little soil and they dried up very fast. And so the sunflowers aren't doing too bad, though I think they would be a lot better with more soil as well. You should have added like a bucket, maybe this lot's amount. And here in the garden, Eva grew some tomatoes, which her aunt gave her. We stuck in a bunch of different kinds of alliums. And here the soil is getting better. Last fall, I covered it with mulch, and then we planted these beets and transplanted them into the straw. And as you can see from the kohlrabi, this is much better than any of the previous years that I've grown in this area. Here's another pear tree which I loved, and it's hard to imagine that it was maybe this tall this year, and it grew more than twice. And so I did some more grafting this year. Here was some zucchini, it grew pretty well. So here are some grafts. Each of these branches there's 3 grafts here. One here, and this was a very thick graft, which took off much later, but it surpassed all of the others. And otherwise, this place did not get too much attention. There's stuff in the greenhouse that's growing, mainly some fruit trees and some token tomatoes, which did not really want to redden. And there's hog peanut growing, and otherwise there's not much really going on here. It's my workshop to make oak pegs when the weather is pretty lousy. Moving on forward. Yeah, there's fly agaric everywhere here. So I learned with the fly agaric, I ate them the first year, and I did not know that which part was toxic. So the peel is toxic to the liver unless you dry it and dehydrate it at 40 degrees and leave it so. But the stalk, it's fully edible. I'll eat it now. It's actually really tasty. Just if you eat this, make sure you never eat the green or dark green. If it's not red, don't eat it, because you probably will die. Anyways, no man. Taiga. The tent is where it was last year. We got a little awning for it. This is where the volunteers stayed. We had 2 or so this year. And moving towards the Castle Hill, this was a very interesting year because over the winter we had this place had torrential rains, so much so that the river swelled from 3 meters to 30 meters in some areas. So it was like a big lake, and so everything here was a lake as well. Mornings I come and I cut with a scythe here, and so I'm preparing for next year. Interestingly enough, the asparagus that I planted from seed, which was higher up, this was above water for most of the season. It was fine, but the asparagus, which was under the water, basically everything here, it is September, and now it's just starting to sprout. So interestingly enough, you can't kill asparagus by drowning it that easily, but I did have some sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes, planted here, and they drowned and they didn't return. So these are replacements. And another thing we did with Eva is we built this raised garden bed from willow branches. And it turned out pretty well. Besides, we just didn't protect it from deer, and they kind of went at these plants. And we had volunteers build a mini one. And so that's basically what life has been like on the land. I've been in Vilnius very little this year. Yeva has allowed me to be here as much as possible. She has brought food, washed clothes, and enabled me to just chip away at the house. So I'm gonna go eat and get back to work. Ciao.